welcome to the Pagan Perspective. My name is Angel and I'm your Wednesday host, and this week we're talking about casting circles. Now, I want to kind of pre-up this video with the following. There are probably as many ways or variations to cast a circle as there are people who actually cast them. So, you have to really find out what works for you. And I know starting out, initially, you have no idea what that is. So I'm going to give basic ideas, and I might throw some other things in that you can kind of do as well. This is by no means an in-stone thing. You really have to find out what works the best way for you. You can read 10 different books and get 10 different ways to cast a circle that are not necessarily wrong, but they're maybe not necessarily right for you. And you can take a piece of each of those to create what works for you. So, excuse me. Here's the questions. How to cast circles, what's in circles, or what's in circles, yes, and can your altar be in circles? Now, I kind of prepare casting circles or preparing for ritual and the circle part by the 4 P's. It's prepare, present, purpose, and place. That's what it is. And we'll start with prepare. So, and this is just me, okay? This may work for you, this may not. Whether you're working outside or inside, it's ideal to make sure you find a space that is not cluttered. When you're outside, if you're in an area that has a lot of down branches, it's got a lot of leaves, there's a lot of crunching noises, that can be really distracting to you. Plus, it may not be very safe if you're using lit incense and or candles. So clearing a space where you're going to have your circle is ideal, especially for outside. Inside, wow, I'm really having a hard time. Inside, it's really ideal to have a place that is free from clutter, free from to-do stuff. The last thing you really want to do is get really distracted by looking around and going, I really should fold that laundry and put it away. So having a space that doesn't have anything in it that you need to get to, and also turning off your electronics. Anything that can distract you. Now, the room we're in, that I'm filming in, is my temple space. And yes, I have my computer in here. But whenever I do ritual or spell casting or anything like that, I turn off my computer completely. And I don't have my phone in here or tablets or anything like that. So, part of preparing for circle is preparing the space for circle and also preparing your mindset. By preparing the space, you're getting into that mindset that this is a purification part of the circle. You're creating a space where it is cleansed to welcome in energies that you want to work with. Excuse me. The next thing you want to do once you've cleaned the space or cleansed the space or made the space purified is that you want to define your directions. So if you have a compass, actual compass, or a compass on your phone, it's easy to do that. My allergies are starting to flare up, so pardon me. So you want to define your the directions, and you can do that with just a simple votive, or you can do that with a votive and elemental representations. Generally, people like to have votives anyways because they like them, and they will speak to that element. But I'll get to that. So, for air, you may have you may have your votive, and you may have a feather. You may have an instrument that is associated with air, or anything associated with air. And you can get really deep into representation here. You can get the colors of the elements in the votives. You can put the color of the votives in a shell for, say, water. You can get as detailed as you want to do, and I suggest that you go to the level of detail that you can keep up. For instance, what I mean by that is, a lot of people, especially starting out, want to get everything right now. But then you find a few years into your practice, you rarely use any of the stuff that you bought. So, if you know, as a general rule, that you're not going to go out and try to find the different colors of the votives, then just buy a pack of just white votives. If you know that, you can easily find little glass votive holders, you don't have to go out and try to find all these fancy votive holders. Plus, you could decorate those votive holders very inexpensively to represent the elements as well. So once you've defined your circle with the elemental representations, and some people even outline it with salt, they'll outline it with stones. However you want to do that. Some people do ritual outside an area that that they're not going to go back to that often, or that is they may not go back to at all. And in that case, you don't want to really leave all these stones everywhere that you brought with you to create the circle. You're going to want to take them with you. So, and also be mindful of the environment that you're in. You don't want to remove stones from certain areas and put them into your circle area, because they belong where they are. The next thing you want to do is purify your space, and some people do this with blessed water. Some people do this with salt and water. It's another part of cleansing the process, cleansing the circle, and you can do this before you start casting or after you start casting. Some people vary on that. Some people feel like, no, after you start casting that you should do that, but it really is up to how you feel. And I do that before I start anything. Now, there's 5 elements, and I'm going to jump down to the purpose real quick. When you have a votive, or you have a representation of each of the elements, your altar, my altar, I use as my spirit, because there's 5 elements, spirit being being one of them. 5. So I put my altar in the middle of my circle, and I use that as a representation of spirit. It is in the center. It is what everything draws to. So, yes, your altar can be in circle. Actually, should be in circle, because once you cast circle, you don't really want to keep going out of circle for anything in particular. You can cut spiritually or symbolically cut a door to go out if you need to and come back in. But essentially, once you cast circle, you want to stay where you are, because you are in between the worlds. Okay. Present. So, while you are getting your circle ready, you want to set up your altar. Now, your altar can have pretty much anything on it. It can have your deities representations. It can have just elemental representations. If you have specific stones that you want on there, whatever the purpose of your ritual that you're casting to protect and help build the energy in, you're going to want to have that stuff on the altar and ready to go. Okay. Now, as far as the elements, when you're actually going to cast the circle, excuse me. You can say anything. You can write something to say to the elementals, to request their presence, to ask them to bless your circle. You have to find what works for you and what to say. There, again, are so many different variations of what you can say, what's been written, some beautiful things, but they may not connect with you. They may be a little bit too much, or they may not be enough. There's been circles I've cast where I'm like, fire, I need you. I need your energy. I need your passion. I need, can you please come and join me? And, it can be anything. It can be anything. It's all about intention. So, that's when you have those representations, you can say anything that you want, that feels right to you. Now, another thing I want to jump to really quick, and this is place. Make sure wherever you're casting your circle is a safe environment. There will be times where your eyes will be closed during your casting, and you want to make sure that you're not going to be snuck up on by somebody. If you're outside in an area where you just want to be really mindful of where you're doing ritual. You want to be very careful. If you're in your home, generally that's safe, and you lock your doors and you're good to go. But if you're outside in particular, be very mindful of the safety of the environment that you're in. And don't just rely on the fact that it's daytime when you're doing ritual, because that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just be very, very cautious of where you're doing ritual. Make sure it's a safe place that you're doing it. Okay, so when you have your area set, and you have your everything represented, and you have your altar in the middle with everything you need on it, and you have the words that you want to say to welcome in the energies, the environment, the elementals, that you want to speak to the god and goddess, any energies or deities or spirits that you want to join in your circle. You have all that written. Have everything on paper, because relying on your memory when you get in the heat of things, of your ritual, can be very distracting as well. So I always, and you can do it off the cuff if you prefer, that's completely fine. But for me, I always have to write out my ritual. I don't necessarily follow it to the T, and I don't necessarily read it verbatim, but I will look down and go, yep, okay, and I will say what I need to say. So it's just helpful. So once you have everything ready, there's lots of different ways to start. Now, one of the ways that I like to start is I like to ring a bell. And where's my bell? Oh, here it is. I like to ring my bell. Now, when you ring a bell, it changes the vibration in the environment, and it kind of gets the intention of everything around you, the energies, the spirits, the deities. It's kind of like saying, it's time, kind of thing. So you can ring a bell and say, I am starting to cast my circle with the intention of whatever you're casting it for. Now, you can, again, do this in any order that makes you feel comfortable, that you feel right with. I'm not going to tell you that this is the way you have to do it. Never. So what I generally do is I ring the bell, I state my intention of why I'm casting circle, I enter circle, and I will go to my first element. Is that right? I'm trying to remember here. No. Sorry. God and Goddess. I will ask respectfully, with devotion to the God and Goddess, the Lord and Lady, however you want to term it, to please bless my circle with their presence. I will then ask spirits, whatever, fae, dragon, whatever it is that you want to join you in your circle, to ask to be present as well. And whatever verbiage that I found that works for me. Then what I will do to close the circle is I will go to my first element. Now generally people will start in the east, because that's sunrise, and so people term that as the beginning. So again, start where it feels comfortable for you. Maybe that won't work for you. So I generally start in the east. I will go, as I light the candle, I will say whatever I'm going to say once I can't remember it, and then I will light the candle and say what I need to say. And then I will go to the next element until I've come back and done all 4 of them and come to my actual altar, where I will do the spirit element, and then I will state that the circle is cast and protected. Now, if you don't have a big space, you don't necessarily need to get up and go to each element. You can sit at your altar and you can just, turn if you need to. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of having a huge space to do a big circle in. Okay, so once you've done that part, then you can do whatever you're going to do within ritual, whatever your spell casting is, whatever your ritual is. You finish all that, and then when you're complete with everything, you will thank the spirits and the gods and goddesses that you asked to join. You will go to each element and thank them for being there. You will state that the circle is open, never broken, and you will be finished, basically. Now, when you finish and you're sitting there, sometimes rituals can be pretty intense. There's a lot of energy still there. I would sit in stillness for a while. I always keep a notebook and a pencil next to me too, because you never know what you're gonna get inspired. You could get a message or a vision, or you could just get an epiphany. And it's good to write those things down to keep track of, when these things happen, your spiritual notebook. So, once you're done with ritual, the next thing, after you've sat in stillness, you've taken in the energies, and you feel like this is good, this is complete, the next part is a part that I find very, very important to do. Now, some people have cakes and nails in their rituals or offerings, and some people don't. But what I find is very, I don't want to say finishing, but it feels like completion is once I'm done with my ritual, and if I'm outside, I've cleaned up my ritual space, put all my ritual items away. If I have cakes and ale, I will offer those to the spirits of the earth mother. And if I don't, I always bring an offering with me, and I leave it as thanks to the earth for allowing me to have that space for that time. It's all about being in an attitude of gratitude for the environment. And that's pretty much what I would do. I mean, there are variations depending on what I'm doing a ritual for, is how I cast circle. But there are tons of different ways that you can do circle, and these are just a very, 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 very few. So that's it. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, or anything like that, please leave them down below, as always. I love when you like the videos. That's awesome. And I think that's it. I will talk to you guys next week. Have a great rest of the week, and blessed be.